Hi, Michael Cloud, 27th District Congressman for this wonderful region. It's exciting to be here today and be able to give a legislative update. A lot of stuff happening, of course, on the national scene, but more importantly, how's that connecting to what's going on locally? We're at the tip of the spear of a lot of the great things that are happening in our nation, and it's exciting to be here to talk with everybody about it.
Welcome to United We Podcast, the official podcast of the United Corpus Christi Chamber of Commerce, the only chamber podcast in South Texas. I'm your host, Al Ariola Jr., and we're here to explore the latest business insights, community stories, and opportunities shaping the coastal bend. Whether you're a business owner or just passionate about our region, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Well, Congressman, thank you. We did spend the morning together. A lot of the folks in the room I'm seeing, we spent the morning together, and I wanted to give you an opportunity, before we talk about what happened this morning, just say hello. What do you want to share? Some welcome remarks real quick, and then we'll get started on some of these questions.
Sure, yeah, it's great to be with you all. It's great to serve a community that's really on the tip of the spear of so much that's happening in our country for good. And we always work on three different tracks in our office. There's the day-to-day stuff that never meets the news, the trying to be a bridge between you and your federal government, all the different ways, we work through cases to get that done, whether it's through the VA, Social Security, all those different kind of things, passports, tax refund, all those different kind of things. Know that that's a resource that's available to you or people you know who are dealing with those sort of issues. Then, of course, there's the things like this morning and other projects like that where we're working to make sure that our district isn't overlooked, that we're telling the story of what's happening here and being a part of the story of where our country's going. And then, of course, the big top-line issues you see in the news every day that we're working on. But know that a big part of what we're doing is the day in, day in, out of serving our community. And for that, I've always said that my first job as my first task as a representative is to listen. We need your feedback. You're experts in the industries that you work in, and for us to stay informed on whatever we're dealing with. We appreciate the feedback and certainly appreciate the Chamber for all you do to be involved.
Thank you, sir. Well, this morning we were celebrating and maybe you could give more context to it. It's over. Like now we have had a ceremonial achievement of the ship channel improvements. I know it's been a 10-year window. A lot of leaders, a lot of you in the room contributed to that process. Do you want to describe to folks what we celebrated today?
Sure, yeah. They called it ribbon cutting. I'm glad to see that we didn't actually all put on scuba gear and go down 54 feet. But it's a long time coming, and genuinely speaking, this project started almost 30 years ago, roughly 30 years ago, with the idea and then the permitting process. I mean, all the different steps you have to go through, and then once we got involved, we were able to help get some of the funding to the president's budget with that, and then today it's been a long project of people throughout this entire community working to make sure this stayed on the radar. That the Army Corps worked through it. The Port did a fabulous job of making sure the story was told. And then today to see the 4 different contracts that it took to deepen the channel to 54 feet and then to widen it to 530 feet makes it the largest, the deepest draft port along the Gulf of America, I guess. So it's exciting. It's a big day really for our region. So it's a lot to be proud of for all those who are involved and for our community.
Well, and from what I understand, to get into President Trump's budget, you ended up on a plane ride on Air Force One where you were able to appeal to him about the importance of what's going on here. Can you describe what that was like?
Sure. Yeah, I just been elected 3 or 4 months. We knew that this was the big project that needed to be done in our district, and so we had been working with the White House to make sure this was on the radar to tell the story. The port had worked with us again to make sure that we had everything we needed to make it. And I was actually walking into the aquarium, so just so you know this happened. I was walking into the aquarium with my kids. We were just going to visit the aquarium. I think it was a Saturday morning. And then we got the call from the White House and said, hey, the president's going to be in town I believe Tuesday. Can you fly back with the president and make the case for the Port of Corpus Christi? And I remember thinking that it was funny that it was a question because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing Tuesday, but I guess this is it. Whatever it is, it's getting canceled. And so we had the opportunity to fly back with the president and, of course, talk to him about the fact, and I told him, I said, ports are important to the lifeblood of our economy and our country. I think we should be prioritizing ports that are sending out American energy as opposed to ports that are bringing in goods from China. And those ports are important too, so I don't mean to make light of it, but certainly we should be at the top of what's going on because of how important American energy production is to us leading on the world stage, and then all the other great stuff that's happening at the port as well. And of course, many people saw the video the next day. Larry got a video of it. We started farming around everybody in the government because the president came out the next day and on video said, they're trying to get the big ships in. You gotta help them.
Dude, you did a better impression of the port.
I'm not the best impressionist, but the best Donald Trump expressionist is actually the speaker. But he's like, we gotta help the guys in Texas out. They're trying to get the big ships in. Anyway,
well,
you got done?
Well, speaking of the port, and Kent made a pretty profound quote about that we are. It's a bold statement to say that we were going to be the biggest oil and gas exporter in the country, and we in fact are. So can you get to some of those, geopolitics and how this is good for America, what's going on here in Corpus Christi?
Yeah, about a year ago, I had the opportunity to travel to Taiwan, and guess where they were getting their LNG from? It was coming out of the port of Corpus Christi. And I mentioned at this time about 6 months ago, I was at one of these energy conferences, 14, 15 countries present. The very first question is, can you send us more energy from America? And I'm like, yes, I know people who can get that done. What we do here, we know it affects our economy, it helps provide jobs, funds schools, all the hospitals, all the great stuff that happens in our community. But it helps us to be a part of providing energy to our allies, which becomes a stabilizing force on the world stage. Literally, we have a war going on right now in our world that potentially could have been avoided with different energy policy. And what we can do to provide a stabilizing force in the world through what we're doing here, literally we're working for peace as we work for energy. You're helping people come out of poverty. You're helping people mobilize. We do energy better than the rest of the world. We do it cleaner, more responsibly, more efficiently. And so the bigger part we can take up of that, the better it is for the world, both politically, environmentally, everything. And so it's exciting again to be here and be able to work as a community on that.
Shifting gears a little bit, all of us have been hearing about the big, beautiful bill, and maybe some of us are still trying to get some context and what's in it, what's not in it. Can you describe your take on what's going on with the big, beautiful bill?
Sure. The big, beautiful bill, as it's been called, it passed out of the House last week, and basically there's a process called reconciliation. In which the unique thing about the process of reconciliation is it only requires 50 votes in the Senate. Now, this is a budget reconciliation. There's a lot of things you can do in a reconciliation thing. There's a lot of things you cannot do in a reconciliation thing. Now, anytime, of course, you're in an environment, you're finding ways to save money for the American people, there's going to be, obviously, politicized talking points and those things going on. You'll hear a lot about Social Security, for example. The rules of reconciliation, we can't touch Social Security anyway, and that wasn't even a goal ever. So you can just throw away all those talking points, regardless of some signs you may have seen on the way. But one of the other things that did get attention was Medicaid, and here's why. A lot of people don't know that if you were to draw the poverty line, there's more than 50% of people on Medicaid right now that are above the poverty line than below the poverty line. So all the discussions surrounding Medicaid have to do with us getting back to Medicaid being for who it was designed for, the vulnerable, the disabled, people who actually need the help. What's happened over time, especially in expansion states, is it's a cost share between states and the federal government. So states usually pay for every dollar the state pays for a disabled person, for example. The federal government pays about $1.30-ish, depending on the state, for their cost share. Right now, these states are incentivized to get able-bodied working adults, no kids at home, onto the Medicaid rolls to the tune of, for every dollar the state spends on a person like that, the federal government is spending $9 for an able-bodied person to stay out of the workforce. So there's these kind of things that we're trying to correct that have metastasized over decades. And put that in perspective, about 2 weeks ago we had a bond market, a treasury bond auction. And so this is how we're able to sustain right now the printing of dollars. We'll offer treasury bonds, people buy them and invest in them, assuming they're backing the full faith and credit of the United States. Now, we have gone to the point now, and this is something that it's a bipartisan problem, it's metastasized over decades, but we are at the point right now where we had a bond auction a couple weeks ago, and nobody wanted to buy our treasury bonds, so they had to hike up the interest rates in order to get them to buy them. Now, what happens if we go to a treasury bond auction, the auction fails, the dollar collapses, we're in a completely different paradigm, and every other political discussion about whatever project you want done is kind of irrelevant at that point. We're in a whole different world. So we are at the point where years and years and decades of kicking the can down the road are coming to a point where we have to find savings for the American people and change course on spending. And so a lot of the work that you see happening now with the big beautiful bill, with DOGE, with the president's budget coming out, have to do with staving off that fiscal cliff that we're working on. And so I rambled on a little bit, but the big beautiful bill, basically you had the tax cuts that were expiring coming up, and these were the tax cuts that were going to hit the families hard. The average family would have had about $1,700 to $2,800 of an immediate tax hike at the end of this year if we did not extend the tax cuts. But we knew that there had to be, because of our fiscal situation, we couldn't just print money. We're past that point. So a handful of us had worked really hard to make sure there was a mechanism, in the framework that was set up for this, to find spending reductions along to pay for those tax cuts. And so because of that, we went from finding $300 billion savings to finding $1.5 trillion savings. It needs to be more because, again, our credit rating was still downgraded with what we did, so we've got to do better. But that's where we're at right now. It was basically the tax cuts on one side of the ledger, us trying to find savings on the other side of the ledger, along with, there were a couple of things plussed up. Our military was plussed up, our homeland security was plussed up. Some other items that were vital security importance along those lines were kind of on the other side of the ledger, along with different savings we were finding throughout the federal government.
Gotcha. Well, Larry mentioned, and we have been well served under your leadership. You've had some pretty sweet committee appointments, appropriations, and also the DOGE committee. Which one do you find more interesting and or challenging?
Oh, good question. Yeah, so most committees in DC have a narrow jurisdiction, and so I'm on the two committees in DC that have jurisdiction over the entire federal government. And one's the appropriations, that's from the spending standpoint, all the money goes through that. I like that because we're able to work together to get things done. Some of you saw Quare this morning, we serve on the committee together. We're working to find how to get the money to the right places and also make sure we're not wasting your dollars. The other one is the oversight committee, which, if you've seen it, we try to bring a level head to those conversations, but if you're a C-SPAN fan, which, my mom and maybe one or two other people here, but those hearings can get, make C-SPAN great again. Very, very entertaining, sometimes, to put it lightly. But within that, there's a number of subcommittees that we're on. One of them is the DOGE subcommittee. That's one where we're working with the executive branch to find the waste, fraud, and abuse, and even some of the corruption. And even in the first DOGE subcommittee hearing, one of the things I pointed out is that our taxpayer dollars were going through a funnel of NGOs and literally paying for terrorist organizations. Like if your business was doing the same sort of thing, you would be in jail. But it's been happening as kind of the status quo within our federal government. So that's the kind of thing we're working to clean out, along with just providing tech support that cleans up a lot of the processes that, again, this is like 30 years of neglect. You wouldn't get away with doing this in your business, not having just standard procedures and checks, forms that are mandatory. Like we were spending like trillions of dollars that was going unmarked out of the Treasury just because on the form where they denote where it's coming from and why it's going, it wasn't a mandatory field. So some of it's the simple things of making those tech fixes and changing the codes on the forms to bring accountability. That bureaucrat who's deciding, oh, this grant should go with this place, is going to think twice when their name's on the line and they have to justify where it's going and those kind of things. So, a lot of it's been simple fixes like that, as well as all the other work that we're doing. Two different personalities though. Appropriations committees, appropriations committees and investigatory. Sometimes those hearings, I'm like, how many will we get on the eyelashes and and makeup or something was one of the hearings. I felt completely unprepared for that one.
Well, let me ask you a question. So Larry brought up the context of the culture of DC, and I think it's merited or should not go without saying that obviously the world changed after September 11th, and you did see, obviously, in a sense of for security and a sense of fear that government did get incredibly big, a lot bigger. Do you think that we are at a place where we can say we are safe and we can start refocusing a lot of the way we used to spend in government, or is it still front and center in some of these pertinent concerns and issues? I went CNN on you there too.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And kind of the answer is yes. I mean, some things we've gotten better at. One of the first bills I introduced was the Peace Act, the Preventing Endless Armed Conflicts and Engagements. I'm not a forever wars kind of person. Some of the things we overreacted on, coming out of 9/11, maybe, some of the things in the Patriot Act, FISA things, and those sort of things where we begin to really potentially infringe on civil liberties. And so, worth taking a look and reining some of those authorities in. We knew they did something that was like 200,000 illegal FISA warrant searches or something. I mean, so 200,000 is a lot over, the margin of error. But we find ourselves also in a place where China's been heavily invested in their military, what they do with hypersonics, what's going on in space right now above our heads. There are satellites that can attack other satellites. So we're like literally in the world of Star Wars is happening all the time right now. With me, for example, when it comes to military spending, we need to make that investment, but also I had the opportunity to meet the Secretary of Defense a couple months ago. The key point I made to him was we've got to skate where the puck is going, though. We can't keep shooting down $10,000 drones with $1 million missiles and think we're going to win in the long run. We can't let the military-industrial complex guide or be the decision maker in that. We've got to let the strategy of the future wars we need to win, equip the people who are going to be, working the people in uniform who are going to be doing the work. So there are real threats, no doubt. There are real threats that we have to address. I'm optimistic that we can address them, but much like our fiscal situation, we're past the time of status quo kicking the can down the road is going to meet the needs of our generation. And to me, the key responsibility for me that I live with every day is making sure we pass on a better nation to our kids and our grandkids. So we've been handed a rich heritage, and we've got to do everything we can to secure that militarily, security from a homeland security standpoint, military standpoint, and from an economic standpoint.
Well, and this is a good segue to your Depot Investment Reform Act bill that you just passed. If you could describe what's going on with that to the audience, and also obviously we want to say thank you for all your hard work in supporting the military. But yeah, if you could give some context to the folks.
Sure, and Larry mentioned this. That particular bill is one of a number of efforts we're doing to try to make sure that the depot, what happens at the depot is supposed to happen at the depot. So Larry mentioned there's a 50-50 cost share, for example, or 50-50, I'm sorry, a 50-50. We're supposed to get 50% of the work, but the reporting on that's been really vague. We're working to firm up that reporting to make sure that our depot is getting the contracts they're supposed to be getting. What this particular bill does is there's an old funding formula where it would look kind of like at the 3 years past to determine what the future year's budget would be. Didn't do well to really take in inflation or the current needs, so we're changing the budget model to look at the last year, the current year, and the projected previous year to kind of give you a better idea of where we're going. That legislation was by request of the depot. So there's no doubt some challenges there that we're working on. There's the short-term issues that we're dealing with when it comes to contracting, when it comes to some of the issues that Larry mentioned. But then we're also trying to think ahead to the long term, because the long-term issues with the depot is just the fact that warfare is looking different. And you mentioned the Ukraine, and that's a great example. And even last night, where you have $1,000 drones taking out $1 million hardware, we're in a different paradigm. And so we're trying to think ahead to make sure what can we do to ensure that the depot still has value in the next age of warfare and the workforce as well, that we can make sure that skill set that we don't use that's applied in a constructive way in the future as well. But that's a harder harder thing to deal with is that the Army's still trying to figure out where we're going, you know. And I sit with the generals at the Pentagon and ask them where are we going to warfare, and it's very new. We're in a transitionary period, so.
Well, thank you for helping us stay ahead of the curve. Well, your United Corpus Christi Chamber of Commerce is headed to DC in September. What do you feel will be transpiring over the course of the summer, and what can we expect when we get there?
As far as what's Congress is going to be working on the rest of this term, we passed the reconciliation, the big beautiful bill. It's headed to the Senate. The Senate will probably play with it a little bit and send it back to the House, and we'll deal with that when it comes back to the House. In the meantime, we pivot then and start working on the appropriations process. So this is not only how we fund the government, it's also how we make sure that our district projects get the funding that they need. So we're working through that right now. I had a number of good meetings over the last week with, you know, many of you all on this room to work on that. The president has put out his budget. His budget would hold military spending flat, and then look to reduce what we call non-defense discretionary, basically the other stuff, putting aside like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, putting that aside. It's basically you move that out of here, put the military over here, and basically the rest of the government looking to reduce that by 30%. Now that may seem like a lot, but to put that in context, the federal government grew by 30% just over the 2 years of COVID. So what we're really trying to do is get back to pre-COVID spending. And that's where, and most people, when they look at the federal government before COVID, aren't thinking like this was a lean fighting machine of the federal government. Most were still at that point thinking, okay, we're probably wasting some dollars there. So right now we're just trying to get back to that, and again, keeping in mind what the bond markets are doing and what we need to do to secure the dollar. Finding savings is going to be extremely important. So that's the lay of the land. We'll be working on that. And then when you all come up, just those who can make the trip. It really does help us get done what needs to get done for Corpus Christi and the region. When you're up there able to make the case for what's happening here, when you meet with other representatives, it helps it stay on their radar as we're working with them as well. It becomes another really proactive voice. And then we also try to make some fun of it too. Last time we were able to go on a tour of the Capitol at night. And then, that's the fun part, because that's the stuff that unites us all, the rich heritage, the wonderful thing that we have received as Americans, you know, and the heritage that we share. And so that part's fun too.
When he says we took a tour, he literally led the tour and like had us all, and it was really exciting. Thank you for going out of your way for us, like you always do, so we do appreciate it. Well, Congressman, I'll throw a softball question. You do represent many of the communities in the region. Which one's your favorite?
Wherever I'm at.
There you go, that's good. Well, okay, in the spirit of that, I do have a small gift for you. And so, for everything you do for the team, and this is from our partners at Visit Corpus Christi, at least this is your favorite area code, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. There you go. Everybody, if you join me in giving Congressman Cloud a round of applause.
You won't lose me on the beach.
There you go. Do you want to share any closing remarks?
I just echo kind of what I started off with. Thank you for the honor of serving you all. You know, this morning was just a great celebration of what happens when we can all work together and get things done for our community. And it's an honor to be able to be a part of that story. Do reach out to us. You know, we work for you. I'd encourage you to sign up for our mailing list if you don't get that. That's at cloud.house.gov. It's an official, we call it the weekly report to the boss. We send an email once a week. That data does not go to the campaign or anything. We're not going to spam you. That's just an official update of what we're doing for you. You can give feedback and let us know how we're doing, what we need to do better, what should be on our radar. We need your feedback. You're part of the process and all part of the story. So thanks so much. God bless you.